Alright, this is an exterior review of my 1999 Jeep Cherokee XJ Standard Edition. I've had the vehicle for about 3 years now and put at least 40 to 50,000 miles on it so far. I'm currently overlanding in it for my third straight month with 5 more months to go, and I've already put 12,000 miles on it, heading from North Carolina toward Alaska and back again. So a few things before I get the video going. Number one, like I mentioned, this is only my exterior video. I'm going to do an interior video a bit later on. Number two, all of the components that I'm talking about have been tried and tested. Many of them have been on for over a year. Some of them are relatively new, but they've been on since I've started this overlanding trip. So that leads me to number three. All of my opinions are based on actual usage. These are not just fly-by-night opinions. They are whether or not I would buy these parts again and pay the money that I did for them based on usage over the years and especially on my overlanding trip. Next, these are of course my opinions. If you don't agree with me, fine, but try to leave a constructive comment in the comment section below and not just that company sucks or this company sucks, but just try to make it a little bit thought-provoking. Also, if anybody asks a question that's been answered in this video, I will not be answering it. Maybe somebody else will, but I won't be. So now that that's out of the way, let's get started. I'll start at the front and move towards the back. So to start with, when I bought this 3 years ago, it had a 3-inch lift on it and horrible death wobble. So I immediately put a 4.5-inch full suspension lift on it with adjustable track bars and added 33-inch tires that are on 15-inch rims and 12.5 inches across. Probably the most common question that I get regarding this vehicle. Something else to point out, yes, I know the vehicle is dirty. Actually, I just cleaned it off not that long ago. But what appears to be leaks that you see underneath the vehicle are from me either changing fluids, hitting it with some kind of spray, or something else along those lines. This thing is actually very dry now at this point in time, so I don't have any leaking issues other than maybe a little bit out of the seals on my axles where the drive shafts go, but not a concern that I'm worried about at this point in time. I do replace those about once a year. Alright, so to start with, I have a Smittybilt front bumper with the bull bar attached to it that I have my lights on. I really like this thing. It ties in really well to the vehicle. I've winched quite a few people with my winch on it, and I'm very happy with it. So it's a little on the pricey side, but watch for the cheaper bumpers because they don't tie in to the frame nearly as well as say like this Smittybilt here. I have a Smittybilt 9,500 pound winch with a synthetic line. I am overall happy with it, but the winch line started fraying very early on, so I already have another winch, synthetic winch line at home. I was going to bring it with me, but decided not to. I'm pretty sure it's still going to get me out of any jam that I need to, but over time I am going to have to replace the winch line. So I'm not thrilled with the synthetic line, but I am thrilled overall with the motor. For the first 2.5 years I had it uncovered, and then I made this cover out of helicopter cargo net canvas and have that tied on here just to keep the elements from further deteriorating the synthetic line or messing with the motor or anything. These lights, I have both spots and floods. These are Hamzar lights, and if you look on their site, it is actually more geared towards construction. So these things are super bright. I love them. I have them on separate toggle switches for the floods and the spots. These are my spots, and then I have the floods, and these are pointed outward. I have probably avoided hitting animals a couple of times at least because of having these things on super dark roads. But I love these things. They've held up well. I bought separate harness kits that I installed from Amazon, but like I said, I don't have them attached to the high beam switch. So when it comes to my actual headlights, for the longest time I had my regular OEM lights in, and then I decided to go with truck light headlights. I know they're on the expensive side, but they are also up there as some of the best. I wanted to do this one time, and since I'm out overlanding, I installed these right before I left, and I love them. They are literally night and day. Once you get them adjusted and get used to them, because there is a line on the road from the actual headlight, and you kind of need to get used to that based on what you're used to on the OEM lights. But rather than go with the cheaper light, I went with these, and I'm very happy I did. I should never have to replace these things again. So thrilled with those. I think they're worth the investment, and I am happy every time I have to drive with this thing at night. So underneath the vehicle here, I actually have, I believe it's from the 97 Grand Cherokee, the tie rod. I took out the tubular tie rod that's on the XJs as standard and put in something a little bit more beefy. That is starting to go on me because I bought a knockoff about 2 years ago, so I'm close to replacing that entire system, which I'll have to do here shortly. And then I also have a TerraFlex cover on my Dana 30 front axle. That's actually really nice. I can check the fluid level just by taking that plug out from underneath the tie rod bar there and then drain it with the other plug underneath there. So I'm happy I went with that, and I haven't really hit it too hard yet, but I can only imagine that it's going to do the job that it needs to. Something else to point out is that inside there I have a front Aussie lunchbox locker, which I installed myself. That has gotten me out of a lot of different jams. I'm really happy with it. I'd do it all over again. And you know, yeah, you do hear clicking on turns, but I put a little bit heavier weight gear oil. I can't remember exactly what I put in there. But other than, you know, the little bit of clicking, I don't even know that it's there when it's in two-wheel drive. And you can definitely feel it pulling on the vehicle when it's in four-wheel drive and doing its job. So early on, one of my biggest projects that I did first was my Napier fender flares, the flat flares. I love these things. They are a little bit on the expensive side, but they tie into the frame really nice. You have to cut the metal around the front, and then on the rear you actually need to notch the metal and cut a little bit off, but you got to be careful of the spot welds because you have to fold that back and not cut those off so that the sheet metal doesn't separate. These things are tied in really well, and I have hit these multiple times. On the rear ones, I've accidentally stepped on them while I was working on the roof, and these things have not moved at all. They fit so nice against the frame that I didn't even need any kind of stripping to fill any gaps. So these here were a great addition. I'm really glad I went with these. As far as the wheels go, these are all-terrain TAKO2s from BFGoodrich. This is my second set. My first set I probably put about 30,000 miles on. They still had some good tread, but when I started this trip I wanted brand new tires. So I actually took one of the old tires and put it on the back as a spare. They're a great tire, great overall tire. They do well in all different terrains, and they, in my opinion, don't make a ton of noise on the road. The rims are actually just cheap steel rims. I can't remember the name. I got them from fourwheeldrive.com. They aren't Pro Comps. It's something else. This is also my second set. I have found that it's cheaper on fourwheeldrive.com during the Thanksgiving Black Friday sales to buy the entire wheel attached to the tire and have them shipped direct to my house. It's cheaper than buying this separate, and then having somebody install them and spin balance them back home. So I actually I still have my old rims, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Maybe I'll sell them when I get home for real cheap. But yeah, so I just keep buying all new sets of tires with the rims attached, and I've done a lot of research, and it's the cheapest way. So unless you know somebody who can mount and balance your tires for free, you might want to consider doing that in the future. It did take me I think over 2 months to receive my tires last time, so if you're in a hurry, that ain't gonna work. But and I'm not affiliated with them, by the way. Not affiliated with anybody that I'm talking about on this vehicle. Like I said, this is all just my personal opinion from what I have, and if I like something, I'm going to talk good about it. So anyway, that's what I have here. So far the treads held up pretty well, but I do rotate these even on my trip every 5,000 miles or thereabouts. because they are big tires, and no matter what you do, they're going to run a little off balance probably. And since my tie rods are starting to go, I'm getting a little bit of a shake, and that's going to impact the tires as well. So I am very religious about rotating my tires even when I'm out on the road. All right, as far as the lift kit, I'm not going to show up underneath. I do have a Dana, real quick, a Dana 35 axle on the rear. I'm not going to get into that. If I had $1 million for every time I broke an axle shaft on my Dana 35C, I'd have $0. Just want to put that out there. Everyone talks bad about them, and I've never had a problem, and it doesn't mean that I haven't ridden this thing pretty hard. I don't abuse the hell out of it. I don't bounce off of rocks. If you're going to do that, you might want to consider something other than a Dana 35, but I have no intention of replacing that. I could have talked about that when I got back there, but again, I'm getting onto my lift kit. So another controversial thing about any kind of lift kit is rough country. I went with a 4.5-inch rough country lift kit, full suspension, like I mentioned earlier, with the adjustable track bars. I've had this thing for, like I said, 3 years. I've put tens of thousands of miles on it. I used to take it on rough trails and on rock boulder trails, but I don't do that anymore because it's my Overland rig and I need it. It's my home. But even putting it through that, on all the trail roads that I've been, on all the dirt roads, on all the terrain that I've seen, all the different climates, I have never had a problem with my rough country lift kit. I watch after it, I try to take care of it, but I've never had a problem. I've not even replaced the shocks. I'm probably going to do that soon just because it's been 3 years, but I technically don't even need to. I will talk about the leaf springs when I get to the back, but would I buy this lift kit again? Abso-freaking-lutely. And I don't care what anybody says about it. Go ahead and badmouth it all you want. I would buy this lift kit again, and I had a great job before I quit to do this, and I could have afforded any lift kit on the market, but I looked at what I wanted to use it for, the price point that I was willing to pay, and I did my own research, and I like my rough country lift kit. I would buy it again. End of story. So, like I said, I will talk about the leafs when I get to them. The only problem that I have, the thing that I don't like about this lift kit though, is the adjustable sway bar links. I did break, not the link itself, but I did break on this trip one of the bolts, but that could be for a lot of different things, so I had to back out the bolt. I bought a new one at Lowe's, put it in, it has not broken since, so I really can't even badmouth the sway bar links, but if you look at them, they are a lot cheaper than a lot of other ones out there, so you might want to look at upgrading those depending on how hard you ride your rig. So other than that, that pretty much takes care of everything here. So on the rear here, I did actually replace the leaf springs just recently. Now I said that everything's been on this vehicle since I left for my trip, but that actually wasn't true. A couple of weeks ago, I replaced these. I do have a ton of weight on the back, which I'll show you in a little bit. So to replace these after 3 years, I don't think is a bad deal. If I have to replace my rear leaf springs for $300 every year, or sorry, every 3 years, I'm fine with that. Getting 3 years out of leaf springs with a ton of weight that I have on the back, I can deal with it. So I decided to go with and try something different, my Rubicon Express leaf springs. These are 4.5-inch springs. I do have shackles on the back here that were already installed when I bought it, so I've just been reusing those. And so far I'm happy with it. The reason that I waited as long as I did to replace my rough country leaf springs is because the ride is amazing on the rough country lift. Whether I'm on trails, dirt roads, or whatever, I really do like my ride compared to other vehicles that I've been in. But these Rubicon Express leaf springs have given me that same great ride. I'm really happy with them. They've settled a little bit, which is to be expected, but I did gain over an inch on each side and pop the rear end up a bit. So I will actually be really surprised if I don't have to replace these in another 3 years. Maybe I'll be wrong, and it'd be great if I am, but with all the weight I'm carrying in the back, it's just, you know, springs are going to settle, and I fully expect these to after 3 years, but hopefully not. Right now I'm happy with them, and I would definitely go with these again. They were about $300, and I installed them myself. So underneath the vehicle, the only other thing to point out is that I had to replace the front drive shaft. I don't know if you can see it there. It is a Oliver's drive shaft out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The one that was on here was all tore up. They never greased it, but I'm really happy with that. And something that I should have pointed out with the lift kit, I have not put a slip yoke eliminator in this thing. I have not had the need to. I do have to replace my seals in the axles that go to the drive shafts about once a year, and that could be for not having a SI. But as far as vibrations go, as far as replacing U-joints or anything like that, I don't have any of those issues. So I think I'm at the limits of where I need to be before I have to put a SI in, but I'm not going any higher than this. I have no intention of putting a SI in, so I'm just going with what I've got. And even after lifting it up with the new leaf springs, I was a bit worried that I might develop vibration because I'm lifting the vehicle up more than what it was, well, for a while now. And again, no issues with that. I am very happy with the ride, so no SI. All right, on the rear of the vehicle, I have a Smittybilt XRC rear bumper. I love this thing. It is super heavy, and you've got the actual swing out gate there, and then you've also got the bumper, and all of that is made of steel. It is very heavy, super duty, and I love it. Now, something about this particular rear bumper, for those of you that are thinking about getting it or have it, there is a hole underneath this gear here, and you need to ratchet this area to get the swing arm to mesh upright with the rear bumper. That kept moving on me, so what I did is I found a bolt. So just get a bolt or a screw that's about the same diameter hole that's there, and just lightly snug that in. That keeps this gear from moving and everything else, and since I've done that 2 years ago, I have not had to adjust this once. I've got a ton of weight on it. I step on this thing as a ladder all the time or to take pictures, and like I said, I've not had to adjust it even one time since I've done that. So that's a good tip for anybody that has that bumper and might be having that problem. The only issue I have had is the bolt that holds this in loosens up every now and then. It's a real pain to try to get a hold of it through the bumper here on a hole on the side and hold it so that this can be tightened down. Someone suggests that I weld that, so that is a possibility. The next time that loosens up, I might figure out a way to actually weld this to the frame, and then that won't go anywhere. So it is an expensive bumper, but I really like it. I'm glad I got it. I would definitely do it again. So on this thing, I've got a full-size tire with a steel wheel. That is my spare from when I changed out my tires, and as you can see, after 30,000 plus miles, I've still got some really good tread on this tire, so that's why I went with that as a spare rather than a new one. I decided to mount this ammo box to the top plate. This plate has holes in it, so I just put 4 screws up inside, bolts, and then tightened it down. I think I put a little bit of gasket sealer around there to keep any water from coming up. And inside here, I have gloves, some extra fluids, a blow hammer there, plus also I have my spout in there for my gas can, and it's a really easy way to keep some essential items that I use on a regular basis on the back here. And the stuff in there isn't so expensive that if somebody steals it, I'm going to cry about it. But that I love. I use it all the time. That blow hammer I use to get my sway bar links on and off when I go on trails or dirt roads, and it just comes in really handy. This shovel here, I just kind of shoved in between. You can see it kind of moves, but I do have bungee cords on it on this side and around the back here. But that hasn't moved enough to cause issue. It's just a cheap $13 shovel that I got at a surplus store online called Sportsman's Guide, where I bought a lot of my surplus stuff. This Smittybilt carrier, there was somebody on Instagram, I think Nate Zoinks, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, that put a plastic container here from Costco, I think, and it worked out really well. This is a 1953 NATO can that I've painted red, and the paint stinks, so it's chipping. But it fits in there. You cannot put a USGI can in there, but the NATO cans do fit nice. Somebody did complain to me that their NATO can didn't fit, but I don't know if they changed the model on them or not. Like I said, mine's from 1953 and it fits in there nice. I always carry 5 gallons of gas with me, even when I use this as a daily driver. So that's more weight that's on the back. I have a big wooden block that I use for my bottle jack to jack up the vehicle. And then in here, this is just a surplus ditty bag, and inside there I've got a foldable shovel that I use on occasion. I need to put a lock back on this. I took something off earlier today, so I got to put my lock back on it. I actually have the gas can, the tire, even through the shovel handle, I believe, or I need to do that now. All that is on a bike lock, and it's not going to keep somebody from stealing anything if they really want it, but nobody's going to walk by and rip something off. So they're going to have a tool of some sort to at least cut the bike lock off before they steal my tire, my gas can, or whatever it might be. It's not completely foolproof, but nobody walking by is just going to rip anything off. Inside here, I have a Viair air compressor, which is super handy. So I use this actually, and I think it was that same person, Nate Zoinks. He put just a little bit of I think paracord from that edge to that edge to keep this lid from falling down. Mine does, because I don't have anything on it, and then the lid can fall off completely if I'm not careful. But anyway, I keep my Viair in here because when it's really hot and I'm in a hurry, I can stick this Viair inside this metal can, and I don't have to worry about it burning anything. So that works out really well. It comes in really useful on the trails. I can grab it, pump up my tires, and put it right back in there. And you could actually use that for anything else. And I also saw that that same person put this style ammo can also right here. That space could also be used but I have that for other things, obviously. This here is my only trash bag on the exterior of the vehicle. A trasharoo is just too big. I don't ever have that much trash that I need to worry about. You know, keeping a bunch of it. I throw it out almost daily. If I come across a gas station, a store, or anybody that has a trash can outside, I throw my trash out. But this is just to put in small items so that they don't blow away. I bought this for $1 at Overland West, and just have it up here on a bungee cord. And it flops around a little bit, but it stays in place. I don't worry about it. I installed those snaps myself so that the trash in there doesn't come out. So it works out well. So as far as the rear of the vehicle, I've never had to use the tow hitch. It's on there. I could use it for strapping things to, pulling people, or being pulled myself. I don't know. And the D-rings, or rings in general, I have 4 of them. I think they're just cheap. I think they're Smittybilt. Yeah, Smittybilt rings that I bought, and I've got 2 on the front, 2 on the rear. I can't say anything about those. I've never actually had to use them. So this is actually painted. It's not armor. I've had the armor for this really heavy steel plate that I bought that I've had for 2 years, and I never installed. The reason that this is painted black is because I wanted to paint it before I put the armor on so that it wouldn't rust underneath. But then I installed the fender flares, and now the bumpers here. The bumper has enough clearance where I can install the plate that goes here, but on the other side there's no gap. That's just the way that the bumper got installed. So I'd have to grind off the other side in order to make this fit, and then I also need to either cut my fender flares or cut the plate to fit here, and I just never had the time to actually do it. So this isn't just for looks. I painted this with the intent to keep it from rusting, and then I never installed the armor plating because it's going to be a lot of work to make it fit around the other side of the bumper and also around my fender flares. All right, so I think that's about it as far as the vehicle goes. If I've missed anything, let me know. All right, we'll talk about the roof and what I have up here. So this is a Curt roof rack. It is a cheap roof rack. I think I bought it on a Black Friday sale. It's the roof rack with the extension. There's a lot of different variations out there as far as model manufacturers go. but I think they're pretty much all the same thing. It is just tube, and that's it. So nothing, I don't think any of this is solid. This is just a deflector thin plate. And for paying, I think, $120 total on a Black Friday, I am overall happy with it. The only complaint that I had were the mounts that mount to the actual crossbars. They were plastic, they were garbage, the nuts stripped, and when I went cross country last year for 2 weeks, the thing actually moved side to side, and had moved all the way to one side while I was traveling and didn't realize it till I stopped again. So for that reason, I actually made my own. I don't know how well you can see this. So this bar underneath here is nothing more than a steel channel that I cut down from a Harbor Freight long bar magnet. So I cut those down. I did use this top plate. That is part of the original equipment. I used that, and then underneath, you see it here better maybe. This plastic component was also part of the original equipment, and I hacked the heck out of that just to create a spacer. And so I modified this whole thing, put on new hardware, cranked it down, and this thing has not even moved a fraction of an inch. So I did that around all four corners, and now I'm really happy with the overall roof rack. So it did take some time and effort on my part to make it better, but it works. So something that I did to this roof rack, because I heard people say that water gets into it because it is tubular, is before I installed it, I actually put like a bed liner in every single groove and on every single, you can't see it because the tracks are there, but on every single joint and every single area where water could enter, you can't see it on this side either, I put bed liner and just kind of smushed it in there, let it dry, and in some areas I even put silicone. This thing has not dripped a single drop of rust anywhere on my roof. So that was just a precautionary thing that I did. I'd recommend doing that because the reviews do say that this thing leaks rusty water after a period of time. So that prevents that from happening. Also on the roof rack, I have two more of these crossbars that I got off of another Jeep Cherokee that I had. So I've got 4 points now. I have the roof rack attached to this one, and I have the roof rack attached to this one. These two are just support of the weight because I didn't want it to sag in the middle, and I wanted it to have more support on 8 corners or 8 points and rather than 4. I have right now about 200 pounds up there. When I fill those gas cans when I get to Alaska and Canada, that's going to be another 5 gallons and another probably 40 pounds. And on top of that, I weigh about $145. I stand up there and get up top to either enjoy the scenery, take pictures, or whatever all the time. The roof rack has never moved. It's never bent. The roof of the Jeep has never creaked, moaned. I even had the headliner out right before this trip because I've been walking on it for years, and checked the inside of the vehicle for any cracks or any kind of strain, and I have not seen anything. That system works well. I would do it all over again. I am very happy with it. I paid hardly anything for it, and it is held up super well. So people have asked me about that roof rack a lot, and like I said, with the way that I've got it mounted up there and with the extra points for securing it to the Jeep and carrying the load, I love it. I am very happy with it. So if you're in the market, you don't want to pay a lot, then listen to what I said about what I did to this thing, and you should be happy with it as well. All right, walking around the outside, this is just a 4-person tent in case I ever want to set it up. I've never actually used it, but when somebody's with me, I might actually use it. I didn't go with Max Tracks because they were too expensive, and I watched Seek Adventure on YouTube, S-E-E-K Adventure, and he did a review on those particular tracks. I'm trying to think of the name. I'll find it and put it in this video. But they held up for the price point that they are compared to the MaxTrax. They held up remarkably well. They don't stack as nice, so what I did is, because I drilled these holes here, and then I drilled holes here, so I have U-bolts that attach it to the back of the roof rack, and then I just tighten that down, and that keeps it up there. And then on top of that, I also have bungee cords that are used for other things that also wrap around it. But because they don't stack really well, I put zip ties around the two on here and then here, so even when I take them off the roof, they stay together. For the price point of about $130 versus what, $250 to $300 for MaxTrax, I would go with these again. I'm probably hardly ever going to use them, so I'm not going to spend the other extra money just to say that I have MaxTrax. And based on the Seek Adventure video, I don't think I'm going to ever have a problem. These I bought, they're smaller tracks. These actually do stack a lot nicer. These were only about $40 on Amazon, but the last time I looked, they were out of stock. I have these mounted the same way. They're just longer U-bolts. I've got the rubber things on here so I don't scrape myself. But I bought these technically as leveling helpers. So when I am in places that I need to level the Jeep, I can use those, but they're kind of a pain to get off. So now I don't need them because I have something else. I might give them away in the future or sell them when I get home. These bags, these are just canvas military surplus bags that I bought off of sportsmanguide.com, and I think they were about $12 a piece. They're from Eastern Europe somewhere, and it's great because I have a hatch cover that my mom made for me out of military canvas, and that's in here, so I can just take that out easily, put it on the back hatch if I need to when it's raining, but it has hardly rained since I've been on this trip for 3 months. And also up here for easy access, I have my hiking poles, I have tent poles, extendable tent poles, and even my paddles for my inflatable kayak are also in there, and all of that can come out relatively easily by just unzipping these, and they're out of the way and they work really well, and it doesn't matter if they get wet. All right, so another thing up here, well, I pointed out that I have these plastic gas cans. I'll talk about this cover in a minute, but I do have two plastic 2.5 gallon gas cans up here. Here is my high lift. It is out of the way. I don't need to show people that I have a high lift. I don't care if I have a high lift. I have never used that thing. It's up here, tucked out of the way, because I didn't want to mount it on my hood. I don't need to show people I have one. Like I said, I've never used it. When I get home, that is going in my garage, and it's probably never going to be seen again. I might even sell it for cheap. It is a boat anchor with the winch, with other recovery gear that I have inside. The one time that I might need it, it's just not worth carrying around all that weight for another 3 years or however long I have this vehicle. So that is up there. It's going to come down when I get home, and that's going to be that. All right, so up top, and like I said, I stand on my rear bumper carrier all the time. So up top, to start with, I went ahead and got these. I'm not going to take them out. They're called Go Treads. I got this at Overland West. They're $110 and they fold up. They have a lifetime warranty. They are great for getting you out of a jam like Trax would, and they're also great for leveling. I have used these multiple times to level in an area where I couldn't easily find logs or rocks or anything like that, and I didn't want to dig a hole. But I have these up here. I can get them out, level the vehicle, and I'm very happy with them. They have very few warranty claims on these things, and from everything that I've read from other people that have them, they love them. They were designed for semi-trucks, and they started selling to the 4x4 market, so I'm really happy with those, and I would definitely get those again if I had to. All right, something else that I bought at Overland West were these Perfect Bungee is the name of the company. Again, I'm not affiliated with them, but these things are the best bungee cord I've ever used. I think they're made out of silicone or something like that. They are molded around the clips. They all have holes in them so that you can adjust them. And this one here is a spider one. They, at the exhibit, they were holding down with just one of these 2 tires on the roof carrier of the vehicle that they had. They stretch awesome. They're supposed to stretch, I think, up to 2 times their length. And so I got the spider one and I got other ones, and I love these. Whenever I have to get something off this vehicle, I dreaded it because these black either rubber or EPDM bungee cords were a huge pain to deal with, and I just hate them. And a lot of them in 3 months have already cracked and I've had to throw them out. The EPDM ones have lasted, but they don't stretch very nice. And that one there is only pulling this tent up a little bit to make room for the back hatch. But now that I have these perfect bungees, I swear by them. I will keep buying them. I've only had them for about 2 months, and they might fade a little bit, but they're supposed to last forever. And their warranty is, even without a receipt, if you have them and something happens to them, they will replace them for free. So this is something that I haven't used for a very long time, but just in the 2 months that I've had them, they are worth every cent. They're not even that expensive, in my opinion. So check these guys out. All right, so these boxes, these are just cheap, I believe, Plano boxes from Academy Sports. I think on a Black Friday, I paid like $12 or $13 for them. I walk on these things. Again, I get up on them all the time for either looking over something that I can't see, or to just enjoy the scenery somewhere at a higher elevation, or just for a photo. I've got 3 of them up here. Each one has about 60 to 70 pounds in it, and you can see that they've indented a little bit, and I think that's mostly because of the weather, because when I walk on them, I do walk around the edges. They don't have weather seals. It's just a lip. But I was early on in my trip, I was in some monsoon rains, and I got very little water inside, I think, one of these. Some water might get in the channel underneath here, but I have not had a problem with all my stuff getting wet inside. So for a total of $40 for 3 boxes, being able to walk on them, I am very happy with that investment. And yeah, they are Plano, but I do recommend them if you have them. Like I said, they're not watertight, but they've held up for me. And then the last thing up here is this. This I actually put up here for a little bit of wind resistance because of all this stuff up here. I did have to make it narrower than the overall width of all this stuff up here because I didn't want the edges flapping in the wind. This is made out of an aerial cargo net from the military, and this is the skid plate out of the bottom section of the aerial cargo net. I went ahead and installed grommets all the way around the edges so that I can hold it tight so it doesn't flap in the wind. And that was mostly, like I said, to be a little bit of a wind deflector and also protect the gas cans up front from rocks or anything like that puncturing the gas cans. So it serves 2 purposes. I'm really happy with it. It has faded, but the overall material has held up really well. So I've actually got a few more of these back home, and I've used them for quite a few different things. So that covers most of the exterior. One other thing that I did is I put on these rain deflectors on 3 of my windows. I actually don't have the front one installed on my driver's side because I like to have the window open and I don't like that in the way. So those are great because I can crack the windows at night even when it's raining to either cool the cab off inside or to vent it out because I do have USB fans that I can stick in the window when it's really cold outside to keep the windows from fogging up. And then back up underneath the vehicle, I actually do have a really heavy-duty rear fuel tank skid plate. I decided not to put that on because I didn't want to add even more weight to the back of the vehicle. I will be selling that when I get home. I'm not going to install it. I'm not going to be doing any rock crawling that I'm really going to need it. And I've made it this far, so I'll take my chances. I also have a transfer case skid plate, which is also heavy duty. I probably will install that when I get home, but I never got around to it for this trip. So I think that's about it for the exterior. Looking around, I can't think of anything else that I have done. Oh, just, I'm not going to show the engine bay. I've got a cold air intake that came with the vehicle. I hate it. Everybody knows that cold air isn't really cold air intake. It's just exchanging hot air inside. It's not sealed off very well. I haven't really had an issue with it. That's another thing. This thing does not really overheat. I had one stretch of overheating in California when it was 110. I was going through the Mojave Desert and or around Joshua Tree, and going uphill with the AC on, it did start to overheat, but I'd turn the AC off and let it idle for a few seconds, and it would go right back down to where it needed to be. Other than that, out east in North Carolina, when it's 100 degrees outside with 100% humidity, I can run my AC on trails going uphill, anything. It just didn't like that dry air and that particular heat. But in 3 years, that was the only place that I've really had a problem with overheating. I have replaced almost everything inside the engine bay other than the engine and also the transmission or the axles. So I have replaced the radiator, all the hoses, the water pump, the alternator. I just replaced the air compressor in Arizona. Tune up, new 4-hole injectors inside. I just recharged the cold air intake, and a lot of other miscellaneous things that I've done to this thing. Bottom line is, people, this is an old vehicle and parts wear out. So one thing that I did is I replaced, even if I didn't need to, if I was working on something and I needed to replace it and I had to take out other things to get to it, I replaced those as well. When I went on this trip, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to have to worry about things breaking down on me. The one thing I haven't done is the starter. I'm getting kind of worried about that. I might end up replacing that pretty soon before I go into Alaska and Canada and really get out there where help is going to be a long way away. So, like I said, a lot of components on this. Almost all of the components that you can easily be replaced have been replaced, and I did that for peace of mind and also to make sure that it keeps running the way that I want to. I've had few issues with this thing and I don't want to have any more, so for that reason I got that all taken care of mostly before I left on this trip. Alright, so that's my ride. Another thing to point out, and now, even saying that the rough country lift kit has lasted for as long as it has, I do a lot of preventative maintenance. I grease everything on a regular basis. I change out all my fluids. I rotate my tires. I refresh my fluids when I don't completely change them out. And I do a lot of preventative type stuff so that I don't have to do a lot of reactionary type stuff. I want to have things on this thing last as long as they possibly can, so I take care of them. But would I change hardly anything on this vehicle? I know I hardly talk to anything negative about a lot of this stuff, and that's just because I like my setup. I probably would not do anything different. From the front to the back, I like what I have. I like what I just showed, and I'm happy with it. And I'm happy enough with it that I'm going to continue on for the next 5 months to get almost as far away as I can from my home in North Carolina to be in the far reaches of Alaska and Canada. And I'm going to do it with this rig, and I'm happy with it, and I'm confident in it. Yeah, things are going to go wrong. That's just the nature of the beast. But the more I take care of it, the more I'm going to be able to depend on it. So again, this is all just my opinion based on a tried and true vehicle that has been on the road for tens of thousands of miles and that is currently overlanding and being lived in. So feel free to leave your comments. If you want to criticize anything, at least try to make it constructive for other people. Let us understand why you have an issue. But, if you disagree with me, fine, so be it. Again, this is just me and my vehicle, and hopefully it helped you out. Hopefully it answered a lot of questions that people have, and was able to give you some good feedback on some items that maybe you're thinking about purchasing. But so leave your comments, of course, and like, subscribe, and hopefully in the near future I'll get around to an interior view of my Overlander as well. So thanks for watching, and if you happen to see me out on the road or out on the trails, feel free to stop by and talk to me. Until the next video, talk to you later.